there's been a major development in the killing of a Sikh activist that led to diplomatic rifts between Canada and India. CBC News has learned that the police have made several arrests in connection to the shooting of Hardeep Singh Nijjar outside of a Sikh temple in Surrey, British Columbia last June. Let's turn to CBC's Evan Dyer, who's in Ottawa, with more on this. Evan, what do you know?
Hi, Natasha. Well, this is the culmination of a long investigation into the murder of Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a Sikh activist who was killed in June of last year, shot down outside of a Gurdwara in Surrey, BC. Not too long after that, 2 months after those events, 3 months after those events, I should say, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau rose in the House of Commons and publicly accused the government of India of being behind those events. Of course, there's been a murder investigation ever since, as well as a national security investigation into these matters. And we're learning that arrests were made this morning by the Integrated Homicide Team in BC. And we believe arrests were made in BC and in Alberta. And already a charging document has appeared in the BC court system with the name of one individual, Karen Brar. So he was born in 2001. A 23-year-old, and we believe that all of the members, of this group are young men who entered Canada in the last few years, since 2021. They come from Punjab and Haryana states in India, and are members of a criminal association or a criminal organization associated with a Punjabi gangster by the name of Lawrence Bishnoi. So we're expecting for some court appearances over the next few days, where we may learn more about these charges. But these are the people who are actually accused of being the shooters, the hit squad, the drivers, getaway drivers, and so on, in that assassination that happened last June.
At this stage, Evan, do we know what happens next? Or do you need to take a breath, have a drink of water or anything? Are you okay?
No, you did indeed catch me running up the stairs, because this literally just broke. We were waiting for a more formal form of notification, but the document appeared in the court system rather earlier than we had anticipated. So right now notifications are occurring, and we don't yet know exactly how this will proceed, but all of the people who've been arrested will come up for first appearances. We believe most of them will be by video link. At that time, we will learn the rest of the names of the accused, but we already know something about them, which is that they are all people who came into the country recently. They're foreigners. They don't have status in Canada as citizens or permanent residents. We believe that all or most came as international students, and that they've been operating in Canada for the last few years, engaged in serious criminality.
Again, I'm just taking a quick look, and by the way, thanks for running up those stairs for us. I'm taking a quick look at the information that you've been able to get along with our colleague Chris Carter and Phil Ling. So the arrests and charges today are expected to be limited, as you mentioned, to the shooting of Nijjar back on June 18th of 2023. But based on the sources, the stories that we're reporting online show possible links to those 3 additional murders in Winnipeg and in Edmonton, in which an 11-year-old boy was killed, but charges are not expected today in those separate cases. So it seems like it's a huge web of intelligence gathering and detection that needed to happen in order to get these 3 men arrested. Now, you did briefly touch on this, Evan, which is critical to so much of what Canadians have been following, which is the diplomatic break between Ottawa and Delhi. What do you anticipate, or what are you potentially hearing in terms of how the Indian government might be reacting to what's taking place today?
Well, we don't expect to hear an awful lot of details about the involvement of Indian government officials in this murder conspiracy today, necessarily, Natasha. But that isn't because investigators don't believe that the Indian government was involved. They very much do. In fact, investigators long ago ruled out the idea that this was either a non-governmental operation, internal feuding between Sikh factions or something like that, as had been suggested by the government of India. And they also ruled out the possibility that it's a rogue operation by rogue Indian officials. So investigators in Canada believe that these murders were ordered, or I should say, at least in the case of the Nijjar murder, that it was ordered from the top of the Indian government. The other killings that these people are also being investigated for occurred after the Nijjar murder, and in fact after Prime Minister Trudeau accused India. So these people, if those allegations are ultimately proven in court, And of course, we don't even expect those other homicides to be charged today necessarily. But if those are ultimately proven in court, it means that this hit squad remained active after the dispute between India and Canada had already blown up, and while India was engaged in full-blown denials about what was happening and talking about Canada's allegations being absurd and so on. It means that they actually carried out one of these killings, if they did indeed do this, in Winnipeg just 2 days after Prime Minister Trudeau rose in the House, where a Punjabi man, Sukhtal Singh Gill, who is associated with organized crime in that country, but who also had some Khalistani or Sikh separatist connections, was killed in Winnipeg. And then 6 weeks after that, a double killing in Edmonton, where a man was shot in his car, and along with him was also killed his 11-year-old son.
Remind us, if you could, Evan, about Nijjar and why he's such a significant figure in this story.
Well, Hardeep Singh Nijjar is a sort of a deputy to the person who you might consider to be India's public enemy number one when it comes to the Khalistani or Sikh separatist movement. That is a figure in New York who is also the subject of an alleged murder conspiracy, which also has been linked back to Indian government officials by the U.S. Investigators in that case. So both men were involved in organizing referenda around the world in Sikh diaspora communities about Sikh independence. Of course, these referenda had no binding impact on the Indian government, but they did very much annoy the Indian government and annoyed Prime Minister Modi, who is currently in an election campaign that is expected to lead to a third term, although we won't finally get results until June 4th. So these two, there's been a lot of dispute about how much of a threat to India the Khalistani movement really is anymore. It's much more a diaspora movement rather than an active separatist insurgency in India, which really is not occurring. But certainly the Indian government had identified Khalistanis publicly as enemies of the state, as people who represented a threat to national security. And we've seen Indian officials, including Prime Minister Modi, hinting, in fact, during his last election campaign, giving speeches about how India would reach out and go after its enemies no matter where they were in the world. And so we have seen killings in Canada and attempted murder in the United States, currently the subject of federal charges in that country, and also some killings in Pakistan, and also allegations that there may have been other acts of violence against Sikh separatists in other countries around the world.
CBC's Evan Dyer with the breaking news on the killing of Sikh activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Thank you so much for bringing us these breaking details so quickly, running up those stairs and filling in so much of the gaps with the context that we need. Very important story. We'll be watching for developments. I know you'll be watching. Evan, thanks so much.
Thanks, Natasha.